Hi friends, I'm Gio, and Bentley's with me. I had some technical issues this last week that prevented me from finishing the story. So what I'm going to do instead is present one of my experimental stories. It was originally on my other channel, but my other channel's defunct, so I'm going to bring it over to this channel. It's called The Deep.
Chapter 1. I kept the journal wrapped in oilcloth, tucked beneath the floorboard beside my cot. Micah never asked about it, though I caught him glancing at the spot sometimes, like he could hear it whispering. The pages were bound in kelp thread, the ink salt-stained and uneven. I'd written in it every night since we arrived. The lighthouse groaned in the wind. The sea below was restless, black and foaming, like something alive. We hadn't seen another soul in 3 days. The radio crackled with static. The generator hummed like it was afraid. Micah stared out the window, his wool coat damp at the cuffs. He wore fingerless gloves and a scarf that smelled faintly of cedar. I had on a thermal shirt and a blanket wrapped around my shoulders, the kind you find in old army surplus bins. Scratchy, olive green, too heavy to be comforting. "I think it's coming tonight," he said. I didn't ask what. We both knew. The thing in the water, the thing that had taken the last keeper, the thing that watched us from the waves. "I packed the taffy," I said. "Maple, from the general store." Micah turned, surprised. "You remembered?" "Of course I did." We sat on the floor, backs against the stone wall, the journal between us. I unwrapped the taffy and handed him a piece. He took it slowly, like it might bite. "I used to eat this with my brother," he said. "Before he..." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. The wind howled. The lighthouse shuddered. Something scraped against the rocks below. "I'm scared," I said. Michael looked at me, eyes dark and steady. "Me too." We didn't speak for a while, just sat there, chewing taffy, listening to the sea rage. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. "I don't know what's coming," I said, "but I want to face it with you." He nodded. "Then let's write it down. Let's make it real." I opened the journal. The pages lifted in the draft, rattling like they wanted to escape. I wrote, "Tonight we stayed. Tonight we chose each other." Outside, the waves roared. Inside, we held on. Chapter 2. The lantern sputtered against the damp stone, throwing shadows that seemed too eager to move. Evening had deepened into night, January cold pressing against the lighthouse walls. The sea outside was louder now, each wave a fist against the rocks. Micah sat cross-legged on the floor, scarf pulled tight, his gloves resting beside him. His hair was damp from the mist, curling at the edges. I watched him unwrap another piece of maple taffy, his fingers slow, deliberate. "You know what this is really about?" he asked. His voice was steady, but the air around us felt charged. I shook my head. "It's not the thing in the water. It's not the lighthouse. It's us. We're the test, whether we can hold on when everything else wants to tear us apart." I swallowed, the words heavy but true. "So the theme is survival?" Micah smiled faintly, cedar scent rising as he leaned closer. "No, the theme is love. Survival is just the excuse." The generator hummed, faltering for a moment before catching again. I thought of the journal beneath the floorboard, of the words I'd written night after night. None of them mattered if I couldn't write this down. That in the middle of Innsmouth's winter, with the sea raging and the dark pressing in, I wasn't alone. I reached for his hand again, firmer this time. "Then let's make that the story. Whatever comes, we choose each other." Micah nodded, eyes glinting in the lantern light. That's the only way it ends well. Outside, something scraped against the rocks, long and deliberate. The lighthouse shuddered, but inside, warmth spread between us, a fragile defiance against the cold. Chapter 3. The generator held steady through the evening, its hum a fragile heartbeat against the storm. January cold seeped through the cracks in the stone. I layered another blanket over my shoulders. Micah teased me for looking like a bundled scarecrow, but he kept his scarf tight, cedar scent lingering in the air. We had fallen into a rhythm these past nights. I wrote in the journal, salt-stained pages filling with our words. Micah checked the lanterns, trimmed the wicks, and stacked driftwood by the stove. When the wind howled, we spoke louder. When it quieted, we whispered. Dinner was simple: canned beans, bread toasted over the stove, and the last of the maple taffy for dessert. Micah chewed slowly, eyes half closed, as if the sweetness could drown out the sea's roar. You know, he said, this place isn't so bad if you ignore the thing outside. I laughed, though it came out thin. That's like saying the Titanic was fine if you ignored the iceberg. He grinned, leaning back against the wall. Exactly. Perspective. The radio crackled, a burst of static that made us both flinch. I twisted the dial, but no voice came through, only the hiss of emptiness. Micah's smile faded. It's getting closer. I can feel it. I didn't argue. The scrape against the rocks had grown louder each night, deliberate, patient. Something was waiting. Still, we washed the dishes, stacked them neatly, and sat by the lantern until our eyes grew heavy. The lighthouse groaned, the sea raged, and we held to our routine like it was armor. Before sleep, Micah touched my hand. Whatever happens, we keep choosing each other. That's the only rule. I nodded. The journal opened beside me. I wrote it down. Rule 1, choose each other. Outside, the waves crashed. Inside, we built a fragile home. Chapter 4. The storm had been building all evening, but sometime after midnight, it changed. The waves weren't just louder, they were rhythmic, deliberate, like a drumbeat from the depth. Each crash against the rocks rattled the lighthouse, shaking dust from the rafters. Micah stood at the window, scarf pulled tight, his breath fogging the glass. It's not the wind, he said. Listen. I did. The sea wasn't screaming. It was calling. A low, guttural roar threaded through the storm, rising and falling like a voice too large for the world. The lantern flickered. The generator stuttered. My journal lay open on the floor, pages trembling as if they wanted to flee. Then came the scrape. Long, metallic, dragging across the stone foundation. Not driftwood, not debris. Something alive, testing the walls. Micah backed away from the window. It's here. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. We knew it would come. He nodded, but his hand found mine, fingers cold and tight. We just didn't know how loud it would be. The radio burst into static, shrieking like it had caught the storm's voice. I slammed the dial, but the noise only grew, a chorus of distortion. Outside, the waves rose higher, slamming against the lighthouse with a force that made the floorboards groan. The air smelled of brine and iron, sharp enough to sting. Mike leaned close, his voice barely audible over the storm. This is the moment. Once it starts, it won't stop. I clutched the journal, forcing my hand to write even as it shook. Tonight, the sea screamed. Tonight, the thing arrived. The lighthouse shuddered again, harder this time. Something vast moved in the water, unseen but undeniable. Micah pressed his forehead to mine. Whatever happens, remember the rule. Choose each other, I whispered. The storm roared in answer. Chapter 5. The draft came first. Thin, icy fingers slipping through the cracks in the stone. It carried the smell of brine and rot, sharp enough to sting my throat. I pulled the blankets tighter, but the cold found me anyway. Micah slammed the windows shut, but the draft didn't stop. It was inside now, circling us, whispering through the lantern flame. "We can't stay here," he said, voice taut. "It's too close. You heard it scraping. You felt it." I shook my head, though my stomach churned. If we leave, we're exposed. Out there, it has the whole ocean. In here, we have walls. Micah paced, scarf trailing behind him. "Walls don't matter if it wants to get in. You saw what happened to the last keeper." The generator sputtered, then caught again, humming like it was afraid. I pressed my hand to the journal, grounding myself. "We came here to face it. If we run away now, we'll never stop running." Micah stopped, eyes dark and steady. "So you'd rather die here than take a chance outside?" I swallowed hard. I'd rather choose us here than lose us out there. The lantern flickered, the draft swirling harder, rattling the pages of the journal. Micah stared at me, torn between fear and something deeper. "You're stubborn," he said, almost smiling. "But maybe that's what we need." I reached for his hand, firm this time. "Rule 1, choose each other. That's the only way this works." He exhaled, shoulders drooping. "Then we stay, but if it breaks through, we fight." The sea roared in answer, waves hammering the rocks like fists. The lighthouse shuddered, dust falling from the rafters. Micah squeezed my hand, cedar scent grounding me against the draft. "Debate's over. We stay together." I wrote it down. Tonight, we argued. Tonight, we chose to stay. Outside, the storm screamed. Inside, our decision held. Chapter 6. The storm didn't relent. If anything, it grew teeth. Each wave slammed the rocks with a violence that shook the lighthouse from its bones. The draft had become a steady breath, cold and wet, curling around our ankles like it belonged there. Micah lit another lantern, but the flame guttered instantly, snuffed by the draft. His hands shook as he fumbled with the matches. "It's inside," he whispered. "Not just outside anymore. It's here." I tried to steady him, but his panic was contagious. His scarf slipped loose, cedar scent fading as he paced the room. "We should have left. We should have run when we had the chance." "Micah," I said, firmer than I felt, "look at me." He stopped, eyes wide, chest rising too fast. "It's not just a storm. It's something else. Don't you hear it?" I listened. Beneath the roar of the waves, there was a sound, low, resonant, like a heartbeat echoing through the stone. It wasn't ours. Micah pressed his palms to his ears. "It's calling. I can't." I grabbed his wrists, pulled him down, forced him to meet my gaze. "Rule 1, choose each other. You said it yourself." His breath hitched, panic breaking into something new. "What if it takes you? What if I can't stop it?" I held him tighter, the journal open beside us, pages trembling in the draft. "Then write it down, make it real. Tonight we stay. Tonight we fight. Together." Micah's panic softened, his shoulders sagging. He leaned into me, forehead against mine, trembling but present. "I don't know if I'm strong enough." "You don't have to be," I said. "We're strong enough. Together." Outside, the waves screamed. Inside, Micah's panic became our vow. Chapter 7. The storm had settled into a rhythm, each wave pounding like a drumbeat from the abyss. The draft curled around us, curling the smell of brine and something older, something that didn't belong to January air. Micah froze at the window. His breath fogged the glass, but beyond it, the sea was moving. Wrong, too smooth, too deliberate. He leaned closer, scarf trailing, eyes wide. "I saw it," he whispered. "Something, watching." I joined him, pressing my shoulder against his. The window was murky with salt and mist, but through it I glimpsed a shape, vast, shifting, neither fish nor wave. It lingered just beyond the rocks, pulsing faintly like a lantern under water. Then came the voices. At first I thought it was the wind, but the sound was too precise. Low, guttural syllables formed across the waves, layered and overlapping, a chorus in a language no human throat could form. The words pressed against the glass, vibrating in my bones. Micah staggered back, hand over his mouth. "It's speaking." I clutched the journal, forcing myself to write even as my hand shook. Voices outside, not ours, not human. The lantern flickered, the draft swirling harder, carrying fragments of that impossible tongue. My ears rang, my chest tightened. But beneath the terror was something stranger. Curiosity. Micah grabbed my arm, trembling. "Don't listen, don't let it in." The voices rose, a chant now, echoing through the storm. The lighthouse shuddered, dust falling from the rafters. I pressed my forehead to his, grounding us both. "Rule 1, choose each other, not them." His breath steadied. Cedars sent sharp against the brine. "Then we don't answer." Outside, the voices roared. Inside, we held our silence. Chapter 8. Lightning split the sky, a jagged white scar that struck the lighthouse with a sound like the world breaking. The stones shook, dust rained from the rafters, and the lanterns flared once before dying. The generator coughed, sputtered, and fell silent. The hum that had been our fragile heartbeat was gone. In its place, only the wind, screaming through the cracks, rattling the journal's pages, clawing at our skin. Micah grabbed my arm, his face pale in the sudden dark. "It hit us. We're blind." The voices rose, no longer muffled by the storm. They chanted in unison, guttural syllables rolling like waves against the walls. The sound pressed into my bones, vibrating the air itself. I clutched the journal, forcing my hand to move, though the ink bled in the dark. Voices louder, chanting, "Not human." Micah staggered back, his scarf slipping loose. "Listen, do you hear it? They're saying something." I strained, ears ringing, heart pounding. The chant grew clearer, syllables aligning into a single word, a word we understood. Ezra. My name, the sound of it froze me, colder than the January wind. The voices outside, the thing in the water, it knew me, it was calling. Micah's grip tightened, his panic breaking into fury. "Don't answer, whatever happens, don't you dare answer." The storm screamed, lightning flashing again, illuminating the window. For a heartbeat, I saw it. Vast, shifting, eyes like lanterns beneath the waves. I pressed my forehead to Micah's, trembling. "Rule 1, choose each other." He nodded, though his voice shook. "Then we defy it together." The chant roared, my name echoing through the storm. The lighthouse groaned, but inside we held on. Chapter 9. The lighthouse had never felt smaller. Every stone groaned, every window rattled, every breath of wind carried the voices closer. The chant rose in waves, guttural syllables pounding like drums, until the storm itself seemed to sing. Lightning split the sky again, illuminating the sea in a flash of white. For a heartbeat, I saw them, shadowy shapes moving just beneath the surface, too many to count, their forms shifting like smoke in water, eyes glowing faintly, lantern bright, watching us. Micah stumbled back from the window, his scarf half undone, panic raw in his voice. "They're surrounding us. It's not just one, it's all of them." The generator was dead, the lanterns useless, darkness pressed against us, broken only by the brief flare of lightning. Each flash revealed more. Shapes crawling along the rocks, dragging themselves closer, limbs too long, too wrong. The chant grew louder, syllables aligning again, until the word returned. My name, Ezra. Spoken by 100 voices at once, vibrating the air, rattling the journal's pages. I clutched the journal, forcing ink onto the trembling paper. They know me. They want me. Micah grabbed my shoulders, shaking. Don't listen. Don't let it in. Please. His eyes were wide, his breath ragged, panic spilling over. The draft swirled harder, carrying the voices inside. The walls themselves seemed to hum with the chant. The lighthouse wasn't just under siege. It was joining them. I pressed my forehead to Micah's, grounding us both. Rule 1, choose each other. He nodded, though his voice broke. Then we fight, even if it kills us. Outside, the shapes pressed closer, claws scraping stone. Inside, the chant roared, my name echoing like a curse. The storm had become a symphony, lightning, wind, voices, shadows, all building to a single, terrible crescendo. And we were the audience. Chapter 10. The chanting reached a fever pitch, my name echoing through the storm until the walls themselves seemed to breathe it. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the shapes crawling along the rocks. Limbs too long, eyes glowing like lanterns beneath the waves. Micah screamed. The window shattered inward, shards sprang across the floor. The draft became a gale, wet and stinking of brine. Before I could move, the shapes surged through the opening, shadowy, half-formed, claws slick with seawater. They grabbed him. Micah's scarf tore loose as the creatures hauled him toward the floorboards, toward a fissure I hadn't seen before. The stone cracked open, revealing a stairwell, spiraling down into blackness, the smell of salt and rot rising from below. Ezra! His voice was raw, desperate, as claws dragged him into the hidden canvas beneath the lighthouse. I lunged, fingers catching his wrist. For a heartbeat, I held him, his skin cold, trembling, cedar scent fading against the storm. But the pull was too strong. The shadows yanked, dragging him downward, his scream echoing into the abyss. The fissure swallowed him whole. I collapsed against the broken floor, the journal open beside me, pages fluttering in the gale. My hand shook as I wrote, Tonight, they took him. Tonight, I lost him. The chant shifted. No longer my name, but his. Micah. 100 voices, guttural and triumphant, echoing from the caverns below. The generator was dead. The lanterns were gone. The lighthouse groaned, hollow, without him. For the first time, I couldn't say the rule, couldn't whisper, choose each other, because he was gone. The storm screamed, the voices roared, and I was alone. The lighthouse was hollow without him. The chant still echoed from below, Micah's name rolling through the stones like a curse. I sat in the dark, clutching the journal, until my fingers found the stub of a candle buried in the supply box. It was barely more than wax and wick, but when it lit, the flame sputtered to life. Small, fragile, defiant, its glow painted the walls in trembling gold, a heartbeat against the black. The fissure yawned before me, stone cracked open to reveal a stairwell spiraling downward. The air that rose from it was damp and foul, thick with salt and rot. I stepped closer, candle held high. The light revealed ancient stone steps, worn and pitted, edges crumbling from centuries of tide and time. Each step was slick with moisture, grooves carved deep by things that had passed this way long before. The chant grew louder as I descended, the voices pressing against the walls, vibrating through the candle flame. My name, Micah's name, syllables that belonged to no human tongue. I gripped the journal tight, forcing myself to write even as I walked. Tonight, I descend. Tonight, I choose him. The steps twisted deeper, the air colder, the walls narrowing. My candle guttered, shadows stretching along the stone. I thought of Micah's scarf, his cedar scent, his trembling hand in mine. Fear clawed at me, but love pulled me forward. The caverns opened below, vast and echoing, the sea itself breathing through cracks in the stone. The voices roared, triumphant, but I whispered the rule into the dark. Choose each other, and I kept walking. Chapter 12. The candle stub sputtered as I reached the bottom of the worn, pitted steps. The air was heavy, damp, thick with salt and something older, like the breath of the sea itself. The stairwell opened into a chamber, vast and primitive, carved from stone that seemed older than the lighthouse, older than Innsmouth, older than mankind. My candlelight revealed walls etched with strange carvings, spirals, jagged lines, symbols that shifted when I looked too long. At the center stood a throne. It was hewn from black stone, rough and jagged, its surface slick with moisture, primitive yet commanding, as if it had waited centuries for this moment. Micah was there, bound by shadows, dragged to the foot of the throne, his scarf torn, his eyes wide with terror. He struggled, but the shapes held him fast, claws pressed against his arms. Behind the throne loomed a statue. I couldn't comprehend it. My eyes slid across its form, refusing to settle. It was vast, alien, a shape that bent thought itself. Limbs too many, eyes too deep, a mouth that wasn't a mouth, but still whispered. The candle flame bent toward it, as if drawn by gravity. The voices rose, chanting in unison, syllables pounding against the wall. My name, Micah's name, words no human tongue could form. Micah's voice broke through, raw and desperate. Ezra, don't let it take me. I clutched the journal, forcing my hand to write even as the ink bled. Throne room, statue, Micah bound. Tonight, I face it. The statue's gaze, or what passed for it, fell on me. My bones trembled. My mind screamed. But beneath the terror was something stronger. Love. I stepped forward, candle held high, voice shaking but defiant. Rule 1, choose each other. The chant faltered. The shadows hesitated. Micah's eyes widened, hope flickering through fear. The throne room groaned, carvings shifted, the statue's form rippling like water. The voices roared, but I stood my ground. Tonight I would not bow. Tonight I would fight for him, for Micah, for the man I love. Chapter 13. The candle sputtered, its flame shrinking as if afraid. The throne room loomed around me, carvings shifting in the walls, symbols writhing like living things. The statue towered above, its form incomprehensible, its gaze fixed on me. Micah lay at the foot of the throne, blood streaking his temple where the shadows had struck him. His scarf was torn, his breath shallow, his eyes wide with terror. He tried to speak, but the chant drowned him out, voices pounding in unison, syllables that bent the air. Then the spears appeared. They rose from the shadows themselves, long and jagged, dripping with black light, spears of shadow forming a circle around us, their tips aimed at Micah's chest. I froze, terror clawing at my throat. My journal slipped from my hand, pages scattering across the damp stone. The candle guttered, shadows stretching long across the floor. The statue stared. Its gaze, or what passed for it, pressed into my skull, filling me with images I couldn't bear. Oceans swallowing cities, voices chanting forever, love drowned beneath waves. My knees buckled, my breath caught. Micah's voice broke through, weak but defiant. Ezra, don't let them win. Blood glistened on his skin. the spears closing in. The chant grew louder, syllables aligning into my name again, vibrating through the throne room. I wanted to run, I wanted to collapse, but love held me upright. I forced my hand to the journal, scrawling with shaking fingers. Tonight they bled him. Tonight they tried to end us. The statue's form rippled. The carvings shifted, the spears pressing closer. Terror filled me, but beneath it was something stronger. I whispered the rule, voice trembling but unbroken. Choose each other. The chant faltered. The spears hesitated. Micah's eyes flickered with hope. But the statue stared, still, vast, and incomprehensible, waiting for me to break. Chapter 14. The throne room pulsed with sound, the chant pounding like a heartbeat too large for the world. The spears of shadow pressed closer, their jagged tips hovering inches from Micah's chest. Blood streaked his temple, his breath shallow, his eyes locked on mine. The statue loomed above, incomprehensible, its gaze pressing into my skull until thought itself began to fracture. The carvings writhed on the walls, symbols twisting into shapes that made my stomach lurch. My candle guttered, flame shrinking, shadows stretching along across the stone. Ezra, the voices roared, 100 throats chanting my name. Ezra! I staggered, knees buckling, terror clawing at my chest. My journal lay open, on the floor, pages trembling in the draft. I forced my hand to move, scrawling with ink that bled into the damp stone. Tonight they tried to end us. Tonight I fight. The statue rippled, its form bending like water, its gaze burning hotter. The spears pressed closer, tips grazing Micah's skin. He winced, blood welling, his voice braked. Ezra, please! I wanted to collapse, I wanted to scream, but love held me upright. I raised the candle, its flame trembling but alive. Rule 1, I whispered, voice shaking but defiant. Choose each other. The chant faltered. The spears hesitated. The carvings stilled. The statue's gaze bore down, pressing harder, demanding surrender. My arm shook, the candle sputtering, but I held it high. You can take the walls, you can take the sea, but you cannot take us. The voices roared, the throne room shuddered, the spears trembled, Micah's eyes widened, hope flickering through fear. The candle flared. Light burst across the chamber, searing the carvings, shattering the spears, driving the shadows back. The chant broke, voices shrieking, the statue rippling as if struck. Micah collapsed against the throne, free, his breath ragged but alive. And the room fell silent. Chapter 15. The silence after the storm was almost unbearable. No chanting, no spears, no voices pressing against the walls, just the faint drip of water from the carvings, the candle flame steady at last. Micah lay against me, his scarf torn, blood drying at his temple. His breath was ragged, but real, his eyes open, steady. I held him close, refusing to let go. The statue loomed still, incomprehensible, but its gaze had dimmed. The carvings no longer writhed. The throne sat empty, its power broken. We climbed the worn, pitted steps together, my arm around him, the candle lighting our way. Each step was heavy, but the air grew lighter as we rose. Then we reached the lighthouse chamber. Dawn was breaking. The storm had passed, the sea calm at last, its surface glimmering with pale light. The wind carried only salt and silence. Mike leaned against the window, cedar scent faint but present, eyes shining as he looked at me. We made it. I nodded, the journal open in my lap. The hand was steady as I wrote. Tonight, we stayed. Tonight, we chose each other, and the sea let us go. We sat together, wrapped in blankets, watching the horizon bloom with color. The lighthouse groaned, but it was only stone now. The voices were gone. I reached for his hand. He let me take it. Outside, the waves whispered. Inside, we held on. The lighthouse groaned. But it was only stone now. Right?
Thank you for joining me for this quiet little story. Bentley's with me. He's currently asleep. And it's fun working with Copilot to create this experimental stuff. I appreciate you stopping by. Thanks. And if you enjoyed, let me know and I can do some more like this. I love you all. Peace, my friends.